Imagine you've been walking for hours through the tropical rainforests of Kerala, a well-known South Indian state. It's 1987, it's hot, you're sweaty, your feet are starting to drag, but your guides, men from the local Kani tribe, are walking full speed with energy up ahead. They keep popping these brownish-black fruits about the size of a cardamom pod into their mouths. You're curious if that's what is making the difference, so you pop one into your mouth too and feel a sudden surge of energy. This is the story of how Palpu Pushpangadan and his colleague discovered what the locals call Arogyapacha, or what is scientifically called Trichopus zeylanicus. Fancy, right? Basically, these ethnobotanists studied and isolated the active ingredients in this fruit that was traditionally touted to be a source of health and rigor, and then developed an energy-boosting drug called Jeevani. And they make about $230,000 a year. What's interesting about this story is that in the West, there's usually a process of scientific testing and proving that a drug works before people have the confidence to buy and take it to cure their ailment. But traditional Indian Ayurvedic medicine originates in the opposite order. A 2005 article on Jeevani said that Ayurveda-based drug discovery uses reverse pharmacology, in which drug candidates are first identified based on large-scale use in the population, then validated in clinical trials, which they said could cut the time for drug discovery from 12 years to 5 years or less, and for a fraction of the usual cost. Which all sounds really good if you think about it, but traditional medicine often gets a bad rep in the Western world because it's not proven to work first. So if these medicines are not proven to work, then why do people continue to use them? Well, one thought is that since Indian Ayurvedic medicine is so entangled with Indian tradition, culture, mythology, and Hindu religion, it becomes difficult to not believe in Ayurveda as well. Essentially, the association with Hindu mythology and religion in India legitimizes Ayurvedic medicine and allows it to retain its legitimacy even if there is no supporting evidence from Western scientific experimentation. Okay, so let's take a couple steps back first. Ayurveda, in Sanskrit, roughly translates to the science of life, and the oldest and most authoritative writings on it are in a book called the Charaka Samhita. The Charaka Samhita is dated somewhere between 400 and 200 BCE, and because it's so old, no one really knows who wrote it. It's written in a combination of poetry and prose, poetry because the meter was thought to help with memory retention, and completely in Sanskrit. Why it's so important, though, is because it lays out the structural specifics of the Ayurvedic system. For example, the chapter titled Apamarga Tandulaya lists the various herbs used in the biopurification process of the body. A translated excerpt reads as follows. Therapeutic aptness or rational therapy depends on the matra, dose, and kala, time. Success of the treatment depends on yukti, rational therapeutics, but prior to the application of yukti, rational therapeutics, the physician should always possess complete knowledge about drugs. So basically, what you get from this passage is that there's a specific process in which the physician should be trained to administer these herbs, much like modern medicine, and B, there are a lot of nuances and specific documentation of what herbs need to be used for what purposes and how much and for how long. So even though there aren't very many scientific trials done to prove the medicinal value of these Ayurvedic treatments, the degree of specificity that they go into in the Charaka Samhita suggests that there was some observational or empirical evidence that these herbs actually worked. Now, that's not to generalize and say that definitely 100% all of them always work, but the fact that the system has existed for over 5,000 years does provide some authority to it. It's definitely not just a bunch of random plants or hearsay. The Charaka Samhita is a very technical work about Ayurveda. Most people probably do not know about it unless they study Ayurvedic medicine. However, most Indians have likely heard of the Ramayana. It's one of India's greatest Hindu epics, and its stories are passed down through generations. I remember my mother telling me stories from the Sanskrit epic when I was a little kid for bedtime. One of the most popular stories is that of Hanuman, the monkey god, and the magical herb called Sanjeevani. In the 74th chapter of the Yuddhakanda in the Ramayanam, Lakshmana becomes fatally wounded during a war. In order to save his life, Hanuman was instructed to go find this herb called Sanjeevani and bring it back from the Himalayas. Now, the story goes that Hanuman couldn't figure out which one was the right herb, so he just brought a whole mountain and then saved Lakshman's life. But this is a classic example of how Ayurvedic medicine is deeply intertwined with Hindu culture and religion in India. Surely some of the Ayurvedic practices that were documented in the Charaka Samhita are medically beneficial, but when these medicinal treatments get intertwined with myth and folklore, it can become very difficult to disentangle myth from medicine. There have actually been campaigns to go to the Himalayas and find the Sanjeevani herb, but at the end of the day, it's not real. And incorporating mythical herbs into the narrative of Ayurvedic medicine significantly reduces its credibility and legitimacy. Take turmeric, for example. I remember as a kid, my mom would mix turmeric and black pepper in milk and make me drink it when I was sick, claiming, "It's good for you." I mean, what kind of good she would never say, but I just drank it anyway. The yellow root is touted for its Ayurvedic anti-inflammatory and anti-tumor properties. However, it is also widely used in Indian cuisine and Hindu religious ceremonies. A popular book on herbal medicine reviewed several clinical studies on the efficacy of turmeric and claims that, quote, "The activities of turmeric include antibacterial, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor, antioxidant, antiseptic, cardioprotective, hepatoprotective, nephroprotective, radioprotective, and digestive activities." Okay, so I'm no scientist, but simply listening to that list makes me a little skeptical that one root could solve so many problems. It sounds like a miracle. It sounds like Sanjeevani. But it also sounds like a myth. The book cites almost 150 sources just for the section on turmeric, and while those studies may genuinely provide evidence that turmeric is effective in all these different ways, it also might be a little too hopeful. A more recent review in 2017 found that many of these miracle studies involved conflicts of interests, where the researchers who owned supplement companies and could benefit from sales of curcumin extracts were also involved in the studies. Curcumin is the actual isolated chemical in turmeric that makes it effective, by the way. But interestingly, even though they found that turmeric is hard to absorb by the body and does not cure everything under the sun, when used in tandem with other foods, there is no question. Turmeric does have some health properties. Cynthia Sass, a registered dietitian, says that pairing turmeric with black pepper can boost turmeric's absorption from the digestive system into the bloodstream. You know, maybe my mom is secretly a dietitian or a psychic or something, but more likely, I think it just goes to show how sometimes the why doesn't really matter. Yes, clinical trials can be helpful in figuring out if and why some medicine works the way it does, but if the medicine works, do we really need to know why? Ayurvedic medicine has been passed down by generations for over 5,000 years, and though there are probably pieces of it that do not really have medicinal effect or are tied to mythical or religious herbs, the belief that Ayurveda works comes from those generations of observation and trust. It comes from the trust that even though I don't know why this works, I believe in the system and the culture and the religion, and that's why my mother said it was good for me, so yeah, mix that turmeric and pepper in my milk. I don't know why it's good for me, but I'll drink it because I believe that it is good for me. Although modern medicine is seen as the golden standard, and today science is seen as the opposite of religion, and I will admit the intermingling of religion and culture with Ayurvedic medicine can be delegitimizing at times. But we need to remember that modern medicine is less than 100 years old. Traditional medicine, in comparison, has served mankind for thousands of years. Indian Ayurvedic medicine is so entangled with Indian tradition, culture, mythology, and Hindu religion that trust in the stories of Hanuman and the Sanjeevani herb essentially inspire trust in the Ayurveda system too. Simply scientifically proving the inefficacy of some Ayurvedic herb doesn't really change the fundamental belief that we place on the culture and the system as a whole. In fact, though it may be misleading or destructive in some cases, the association with Hindu mythology and religion in India legitimizes Ayurvedic medicine and allows it to retain its legitimacy over all of these generations, which is important to consider in the context of how many people truly read and study books like the Charaka Samhita and learn all there is to learn about the world of medicine. It's unreasonable to expect everyone to become their own doctor and know all there is to know about medicine. Thus, trust in the medical system, whether that be modern medicine or Ayurvedic practices, is essential to making sure that the most number of people take the right medicine, even if they don't know why or how it works. So, let's go back to our walk in the forest for a second. So we're walking, sweaty, tired, need energy. The guy in front of you offers you this fruit, and he says, if you eat it, it'll give you energy. If that was me, I think half of me would have screamed, what in the world is this fruit? Is it safe? What if it has side effects? I don't think I should eat it. Which I honestly think is a fair response. But another part of me watched that guy take a bite of the same fruit and light up with energy. Maybe I should eat the fruit. Not because I know that it works, but because I trust the result that I see in front of me. I trust the person. I trust the generations that it took to figure out what this fruit can do. Honestly, I think it's just a different kind of social order. Western modern medicine relies heavily in proving causality to legitimize and lend authority to medicine. If I can prove that 1,000 people taking this drug cures them every single time, then I trust that this drug will work for me too. And we trust in that sort of Bayesian logic. However, Ayurvedic medicine relies more on empirical, cultural, and religious trust to lend it authority and legitimacy. Arguably, neither is better or worse. Each has their own strength and appropriately mirror the generally individualistic nature of the West and the collectivist nature of the East. At the end of the day, what matters is what works. That is why we shouldn't be quick to judge traditional medicine simply because it doesn't check out through modern experimentation. There's an old Telugu proverb that says, "Maninde mandu," whatever heals is medicine. It's true, isn't it? Why does it need to be more complicated than that?